Welcome back. Criminal barristers across England and Wales will refuse to attend court for half a day tomorrow. They're going on strike, in effect, in protest at government cuts of up to 30% in income from legal aid. I'm joined now by the former Director of Public Prosecutions, now Lib Dem peer, Lord Macdonald. Very good morning to you, Lord Macdonald. And you think they're not wrong to do this? Why so?
Well, it's very unusual. It's the first time, it's more than unusual, it's the first time it's ever happened. Legal aid has been cut 8% last year and 20% since 2010. Barristers' incomes have declined 40% on legal aid since 1997. On top of that now, 30% cuts. I think that's unsustainable. Everyone agreed that the legal aid budget had to be brought under control, but what we don't want is a second-class service for people who don't have money and rely on legal aid, and a first-class service for people who have money and can pay for their lawyers. An American-style system, which we've sought to avoid in this country, and which I think we may be moving into if we're not very careful.
I mean, because we've been talking about perceptions and reality on this programme already this morning when it comes to immigration. There's a perception-reality problem here, then I suspect you'd say, about barristers, because they're the high-profile barristers. People think they're on a gravy train, they earn hundreds of thousands of pounds every year, but that's not the reality, is it?
The so-called fat cats generally are barristers who charge private fees, and they charge what the market will bear, and why shouldn't they? It's a private market. Legal aid barristers aren't in that category. The government's own figures show that after expenses and VAT and so on, they're earning on average about £35,000–36,000 a year. So these are not fat cats. These are people who are working extremely hard for low incomes, and 30% cuts on top of that, in circumstances where the legal aid budget was underspent by 56 million last year, seems unreasonable. And I fear that the Secretary of State, Mr Grayling, is in danger of destroying something that he doesn't really fully understand, which is a criminal justice system which is as good as any in the world, that's fair and which supports people who don't have money as well as people who
You say he doesn't understand it. Is that because of his lack of legal background?
Well, I don't know. We have two new Justice Ministers, Lord Folkes, a Conservative, and Simon Hughes, a Liberal Democrat, who are on record as expressing strong concern about these cuts. And I hope there's a serious conversation inside the Ministry of Justice now about whether these cuts are proportionate and the damage that they're likely to do to our criminal justice system.
I think it could become more than a strong conversation, become a bit of a row. I mean, presumably you've talked to Simon Hughes about it, and he's just moved in there.
I haven't spoken to him, but I've seen what he said in the Commons, and I've seen what Lord Folkes has said in the Lords. Lord Folkes said that the criminal legal aid budget has already been cut to the bone. So these cuts, presumably of 30% in his view, will be cutting into the bone, and I think that speaks for itself.
And just tell us why, I mean, it sounds a simple question, but, you know, why within the legal system barristers are so important in the British system?
We have developed a system of justice where independent advocates represent both the prosecution and the defence, and that introduces an element of expertise and objectivity into the system, and it's really the glory of our system. And of course the great problem with these cuts is that they will in time be reflected on the prosecution side as well. So it's not just defendants who are going to be struggling to find barristers who are competent to defend them in serious cases, and that could be you or me, our children, our friends, but also victims of crime are going to find their cases prosecuted by barristers who are being paid so little that it's difficult to attract people of ability to do that work. We don't want the criminal justice system to be a second-class part of our overall justice system.
And just on the issue of fat cats, again, OK, we understand they're not fat cats, but are they really on the breadline? Is it just perhaps not as well paid as people think it is?
I think, just to consider the reality of what's happening tomorrow, that up and down the country, thousands of barristers are going to decline to attend court for the morning. That's a pretty dramatic development. These are not left-wing rebels. These are not natural rebels. These are people with families, with mortgages, who've never done this before. I think it's a fair assumption that they've been driven to it.
And what happens, I mean, as we've seen demonstrations, we've seen public sector workers on the streets, not really much happens, not much government response. Where after that?
Well, the problem for the government is that if barristers decline to go to court, the justice system grinds to a halt. So these people actually have some power when they make these sorts of decisions, and I think the government may not yet have fully understood the degree of concern, anger and indeed fear at the criminal bar, and I hope that Lord Folkes and Simon Hughes will try and bring that home to Mr Grayling.